She and Governor Walz were supposed to be there last week for their joint battleground state tour, but had to postpone due to the hurricane. North Carolina has voted for Democrats only 3 times in the last 60 years. The last time North Carolina voted for a Democrat was in 2008 for Barack Obama, and he lost it, 48% to Romney's 50% just 4 years later in 2012. But today, the Cook Political Report released their North Carolina poll, showing Kamala Harris leading Donald Trump by 2 points, 46% to 44%. Now, I want to make this simple. I tell people all the time, you can't always look at polls. Every day Kamala Harris spends in North Carolina is a good sign. Every day Donald Trump spends in North Carolina is a bad sign. Presidential candidate time is a precious commodity. Even more so when the candidate is as lazy a campaigner as Trump. Trump won North Carolina twice. A winning Trump campaign would not be spending precious limited campaign time trolling around for votes in a state that he already won twice. But there's even more bad news for Donald Trump. The topic for VP Harris this week is the economy. And America got some great economic news today. Today, under the Biden-Harris administration, inflation is down to its lowest level in 3 years. The inflation rate fell to 2.9% from a year ago, down from 3% in just June, confirming America has had the best recovery from pandemic-caused inflation of any comparable nation in the world. A reporter asked President Biden about the easing inflation.
Yes. I told you we're going to have a soft landing. We're going to have a soft landing. My policies are working. Start writing that way, okay?
In today's press briefing, President Biden's chief economist, Jared Bernstein, had this to say to people who feel like prices are still just too high.
Inflation is coming down, as I just said to the first questioner. We think it's on a reliable track to get back to where it needs to be. But there are too many prices that are still too high. And I think that's one of the reasons for the disconnect that you described, for some of the negative vibes that you described. And I have 3 words for people who feel the way you just said, which is we hear you. The president hears you. The vice president hears you.
We also learned that since President Biden and Vice President Harris took office, 19 million new business applications have been filed. In a statement, Vice President Harris said, quote, President Biden and I will continue to invest in the ambitions and aspirations of small business owners and entrepreneurs in communities across our nation, as we ensure they have the resources and opportunity to not only survive, but to thrive. And in economic news that Donald Trump really understands, stock market roared back with the Dow closing above 40,000 today. But in North Carolina today, Donald Trump claimed that he knew why.
Many people say that the only reason the stock market is up is because people think I am going to win. Did you ever hear that? But there was one day, a couple of weeks ago, when they weren't thinking that, and you saw what happened.
Yes, Donald Trump was in North Carolina today to give what was supposed to be an economic policy speech, or what he called an intellectual speech. He really did say to a crowd of 2,000 people, quote, we are doing this as an intellectual speech. But in true Trump fashion, Donald Trump went off script to insult Kamala Harris, attacking her laugh and her intelligence. The Republicans keep wishing that one day, hopefully before the election, Donald Trump will become an entirely different person than who we have known him to be. That day was not today, so it's only fitting that Donald Trump gave a shout out to North Carolina's very extreme Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson.
I want to thank a very good man, and he's in there fighting. He's fighting, and we know he's a fighter. The next governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson.
Mark Robinson, who recently said that some folks need killing, and I absolutely want to go back to the America where women couldn't vote. These are actual quotes. Mark Robinson has used air quotes when posting on social media about the Holocaust and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Mark Robinson, who is running to replace the term-limited Roy Cooper as governor. But in hopeful news, A recent North Carolina Forward poll shows Josh Stein, the Democratic gubernatorial candidate, leading Mark Robinson by 10 points. Joining us now to discuss all this is the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on The Last Word. I have to start off by saying North Carolina is in my heart. They also took my money. That's where I got my doctorate from, Chapel Hill. So it's always great to speak to a governor of the state that I once lived in. Governor Cooper, I'll start with this. We're going to start in North Carolina. Why do you think it's been so difficult for Democrats to achieve electoral success there at a national level? Obviously, North Carolina's had Democratic governors. North Carolina's had Democratic senators. But why has it been so difficult to win the state when it's presidential election time?
We've been very purple state, and we've been very close every time. In 2020, this was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's closest loss. But I'll tell you, Jason, I have that 2008 feeling like I had when Barack Obama won North Carolina. The enthusiasm is through the roof. We've had 12,000 volunteers, and 9,500 of them have already worked a shift. Things are happening on the ground. We know Kamala Harris is doing well, and people are excited about her campaign, and that's trickling down. But we also have a bottom-up push to elect Josh Stein as governor and our Democratic Council of State and Democratic judges, because Republicans here have nominated the most extreme candidates in the country. Combine that all together, I think you have a winning formula here, because if Kamala Harris wins North Carolina, which I believe she will, she is the next president of the United States. Donald Trump is in panic mode. He's spending a lot of money here on ads. He just came to Asheville today. You mentioned it earlier. When he is here, it is bad for his campaign, because he must win North Carolina in order to be victorious. We believe that we can stop him. We believe that we can win this race for Kamala Harris.
Now, Governor Cooper, I want to mention the gentleman that you said who's running against Josh Stein. Mark Robinson, I have seen so many ads about Mark Robinson. I was recently in Charlotte visiting friends and family. How would the state of North Carolina be affected if somehow a man like that ended up getting into the governor's mansion? Just talk a little bit about what's at stake, not just sort of nationally, but locally in that state. If Mark Robinson, who says some people need killing, who says women need to keep their skirts down when it comes to issues of sexual assault, what would it be like in North Carolina if he were to actually win?
It would be an absolute tragedy. And Republican leaders in this state should be ashamed of themselves for endorsing him. He believes in no abortions for any reason. He has said people need killing. He has committed, I think, some of the most extreme comments that we have heard from any candidate. And what we need to do is to make sure that Josh Stein wins this race. The reason you're seeing the polls open up a little bit here is because people are beginning to learn who Mark Robinson is. He does not respect women at all. So this would be absolute devastation to North Carolina's economy. Look, we're the third fastest growing state in the country. We've been named the best state for business in the top 3 states for business 5 years in a row. Do you think businesses are going to come to North Carolina with a governor who talks like that? Not going to happen. That's why I believe the people of North Carolina are going to come together and vote Democratic, not only for Josh Stein, but I believe there's enough force here to win up and down the ticket and turn this purple state blue.
Let's talk a little bit about one of the top issues across the country, which is immigration. What we've heard from Donald Trump when he's in North Carolina is he's saying he would commandeer local police to remove undocumented people from North Carolina. Now, again, North Carolina has a huge poultry industry, but on top of that, on top of undocumented people who may work in that industry, I know from Research Triangle Park, you have a large number of people who are simply students or researchers, and sometimes their visa expires. They're not trying to be here illegally. They're just caught up in the system. What would the kind of aggressive policy that Trump is calling for, what would that do to North Carolina's economy and families that have tried to settle and make their lives wonderful in that state?
that is dripping with hypocrisy. Donald Trump does not want to solve the immigration problem. We had the strongest bill in a generation. You had a lot of progressives saying this bill goes too far. And Donald Trump submarined it, specifically because he wanted to keep this issue open in order to help him win the campaign. For him to say things like that, it is so much hypocrisy all over that. And in fact, he's been president 4 years. He wasn't able to do any of that. He wasn't able to make any progress on the immigration issue. What we need is strong legislation, people coming together in a bipartisan way. And that had been done, but for Donald Trump, who came in and made these senators and members of Congress pull away from a bill that they had promised to support.
Governor Cooper, very quickly before we finish, you were on the short list as a VP pick for now Vice President and candidate Harris. Would you be interested, should she and Walz win in November, would you be interested in joining a Harris-Walz administration in order to do some of the work that you've done in that state and bring it to the entire country?
Well, first, I'm so excited with my friend Tim Walz, a fantastic governor, a great guy. He's just an everyday person who doesn't answer when there's no caller ID. That's the kind of person that Tim Walz is. Look, after my term as governor, I'm going to run through the tape. I'm not on the ballot this time for the first time in many years, but everything I care about is on the ballot, and I'm going to work to make sure Democrats win. After that, I'm still interested in public service. I'll see what opens up at that time.
Governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Jason.
Coming up, why are Trump and his Republican allies so against feeding children? In at least 13 states, Republican governors have opted out of a federal program to provide children with meals when school is out for summer break. Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp is one of the 13. Congresswoman Lucy McBath of Georgia is fighting back against Kemp's decision. She'll join us next. On the last word.
I've always been prone to hair thinning.
I'm genetically predisposed.
I just gave birth. I was under a lot of stress.
I started taking Nutrafol.
We test our formulations with the highest rigor of clinical trials, and we're the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement.
I noticed it becoming
Stronger and thicker.
Nutrafol has taken me back to the hair I was meant to have.
I am back to me.
Start your hair growth journey at Nutrafol.com.
Food has definitely been a very dominant voice in my head. That's not the main focus anymore. Dieting, exercising, and adding GLP-1s through Row is a game changer. I have such a sense of mental freedom since I started with Row. Food no longer controls my thoughts. Family time used to revolve around food, and now it revolves around what we're gonna go do together.
Meet the shop that helps you lose weight. Get started at row.co/TV.
The biggest savings event of the year is on now at More Furniture. During our Labor Day event, you'll get fall's newest arrivals at unbelievable discounts. We've slashed